Now the meeting's been recorded, so that's good news. So we'll begin by chanting the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts, and then I'll introduce a meditation and give a talk, and I'll give time for questions at the end, and I hope that you'll perhaps either unmute yourself and ask questions when the time comes, or you can write something in the chat box. And I aim to finish promptly at 8 o'clock. So I think maybe we can begin. So if everyone can mute themselves, and I think everyone is muted, and that's a good way to start. And I'll start by sharing the screen for the chanting. So do join in if you would like to, and we can start by bowing 3 times. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sangham saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sangham saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sangham saranang gacchami. Panatipata veramani sikkhabadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature. Adinnadana veramani sikkhabadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given. Kame sumi chachara veramani sikkhabadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct. Musavada veramani sikkhabadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from lying. Sura Miriyamadja Pamadatana Veramani Sikkhabadang Samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness. Silena Sugatim Yanti Silena Bhoga Sampada Silena Nibutin Yanti Tasma Silang Visodaye. These are the 5 precepts. Virtue is the source of happiness. Virtue is the source of true wealth. Virtue is the source of peacefulness. Therefore, let virtue be purified. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. we talk about Buddhism being a gradual path. And this is certainly true in meditation practice. We begin by settling down and establishing an upright posture. Laying aside any unwholesome thoughts, just lay them aside, let them go. And the busy mind, then we look at the busy mind and we say, relax. Just come into attention in the body as a basis. For focus, to focus our minds, calm the mind down. So at the beginning our mind's very busy and out of balance. But as time passes during our meditation, the mind naturally calms down. We are sitting in one place, establishing an upright posture, bringing our attention into the body. It's a naturally calming thing to do. We notice the restlessness of the mind, chasing after this and that, and trying to fix this and that. Stepping back from that, laying it aside. For later, it doesn't matter, you can come back to it. Just lay it aside. So the mind calms down and the body becomes more centered and upright, relaxed. And that helps support the mind calming down. As the mind calms down, then objects seem to come to it. We don't need to seek out objects for the mind to be aware of it. Objects arise, they come to us, and we notice them. We gradually let go of the doing mind and move into the sense of being awake and aware. We notice the push and pull of the mind. The mind wants to chase after something, we let it go. let go of the thing which the mind's chasing after. If the mind's running away from something, then we let it be. Stop resisting the thing we're running away from. So we move to a place of ease and relaxation, neither being pushed nor pulled by the grasping mind. For as long as it lasts, not setting conditions about how long any period or sense of ease might last for. It will change. And we notice the mind being caught up again. But all the time we incline towards letting go, we incline towards peace and relaxation. A sense of ease that's based on clarity and knowing, seeing things as they are, just letting them be, not running away, not resisting, but not trying to get anything either. So what came to mind, what comes to mind is simplicity. How the things capacity of the mind to complicate everything comes out of fear and ignorance. But simplicity is freedom from confusion. There's nothing complicated in simplicity. I was thinking of how when people don't understand something, they make it very complicated. But you know when someone understands something well because they make it very simple. So it's interesting, the mind complicates things when it doesn't understand. You could think that Buddhism's very complicated because there's a lot of different ways of analysing our experience, and it's a very analytical approach. So there's lots of different lists and different ways to see this and to see the truth from different perspectives. It seems complex, perhaps, but actually, when it all falls into place, it's very simple. Like a jigsaw being put together, and suddenly it all falls into place. And you see the commonality between all the different aspects of the teaching. You see how where cause and effect fits in, and how that fits in with the teaching of the Four Noble Truths, for example. They might seem separate, different, whereas it's all the same, but looking at it from a different angle. The Buddha, on his enlightenment, saw both the Four Noble Truths and the law of cause and effect. But at first we don't see the connection between these things. But of course you can see causality in the Four Noble Truths. There's dukkha, and that's the experience of suffering, unsatisfactoriness. And the second Noble Truth is, it arises like this. There's the cause of dukkha. So there's cause and effect. The cause of dukkha is grasping. So it's the Four Noble Truths is a teaching of cause and effect, isn't it? And when we let go of grasping, we end up with cessation, the end of dukkha. That's another cause and effect. And then there's the path, which is about when you do this you get that. Get the If you have wrong understanding, you get confusion. If you have right understanding, you have clarity. It leads to the right intent, the right attitude. But if we don't have right understanding, we don't have the right attitude. We don't get it. We don't approach things in the right way. And we don't get right speech, right action, right livelihood. It doesn't happen. We don't understand right effort, the benefits of doing what's beneficial and avoiding what's harmful, because that's all, the effects, the results of doing something beneficial are good, and the result of doing something harmful is bad. And you can see the benefits of cultivating right mindfulness and right concentration. They simply lead to good results. So it's all based on cause and effect. And it's a gradual path. So that's a cause and effect approach, isn't it? That when you take a sort of let go a little, you get a little peace. As we progress, we let go more and we get more peace. It's a progressive path. We gain more confidence as we go along. At first we don't have very much confidence. It's reasonable to be cautious. We're not really sure. When it's reasonable to have doubt. But as time goes on, we lose that doubt. We become more confident through our experience, through natural. It's a natural result of following a path of practice that leads to a beneficial result. So when we let go of a fear that we have, we do develop courage, and we realize the benefits of that. So we think, this has possibilities. Perhaps I shall look at fear, the fear of being honest, for example. Let's see what is that something I can let go of? Can I experiment with being honest and see where that leads? And when you try out honesty and you see the beneficial effect, the result, it's based, it's a natural causal process, isn't it? You experiment with honesty, you get a good result. So that gives you the confidence to let go of dishonesty. You can resolve to be honest. I did this. I resolved to be honest because there didn't seem any point in being dishonest. There didn't seem any point in. It seemed to be fundamental to living a good life, living a life that's worth living. So, at a very early age and a very early point in my life, I decided to be honest. I had decided to do that even before I ever heard about Buddhism. It's strange. It was something which although I was brought up with as a Christian, you'd be encouraged to be honest, I guess, but it didn't seem to me to get connected to that. It was just simply I got tired of hiding, of dishonesty. I decided that I just wanted to be honest and let them be open. And I just let it go. I talked it out with somebody, talked out all my secrets with someone who was willing to listen. And then after that I resolved not to keep any. I would be open and honest. And that's been fantastic. That was a wonderful thing to do. I didn't know I didn't even know about Buddhism. And then, so when I found it and discovered Buddhism and found out about right speech, then I guess I developed up more. I kind of knew about it more. I suppose I developed the courage because I was willing to be honest, but I was frightened to speak. So when I didn't want, I was frightened to say some things that I thought would upset people or wouldn't be the right thing to say. So I would veer on the side of being silent, not speaking up. And then I realised eventually I had to learn to be honest. To be truly honest, you needed courage. So I developed courage, and that because without courage you can't be completely honest. So I realised that I did that on a retreat, one retreat, a 10-day retreat. I'd been. It was kind of good timing because immediately before the retreat I'd been asked to sign something which wasn't true. Because I'm an accountant, so the managing director thought he assumed I would sign this to say that his expenses were different to what they really were. And I didn't know what to do. I thought, I'm going to lose my job if I don't sign this. And but I didn't sign it. But I went away and went on the retreat. I just didn't do anything. I didn't respond. Didn't reply. And when on the retreat, I realised, I've got no choice. I can't sign it because life isn't worth living otherwise. You might as well not be. Your life. You can't live on those terms. You've got to be honest. So. What's the worst that could happen, I thought. So I went through that. I think it's a really good way of thinking. What's the worst that can happen? And I thought, well, the worst that can happen is I lose my job. And although I didn't want to lose my job because I liked it and I didn't know whether I had quite a lot of, I had a young family and it wasn't what I would have wanted to happen, but I just knew that wasn't the worst thing. The worst thing that could happen is I would sign the form, because I would then be trapped forever. You couldn't ever. It would be very hard to stand up to him again. So I realised, no, the worst thing could happen is I would sign it. So I had courage to go back and say, no, I'm not going to sign it. And he was completely livid. He was totally, incredibly angry. And I left the room, and he said, I'll speak to the auditor about. I'll get him to. I don't know what he said. He said, say anyway. He said he would speak to the auditor, and of course, what could the auditor say, apart from you can't expect the accountant to sign a form that's not true. So he had to accept that. So it was it's a good basis for a relationship going forward. We had an understanding that we couldn't have otherwise had. So it made a very good relationship. So far better outcome than the worst thing that could happen. And that's what happens, isn't it, when we follow this path? Often we need to develop courage, but the outcome is it's always better. Seems to me to be better than the worst thing we can imagine. When we let go, we discover the benefits of that. We think we're going to lose something, but when we let go, we realise that nothing's lost. It's just it's a laying down of a burden. Nothing's lost. We're not getting rid of anything by letting it go. We're just letting go of our attachment to it. But we have to be willing to let go completely, so that there's an unconditional. And letting go is unconditional, isn't it? You let go unconditionally, otherwise we're not really letting go at all. And then there's freedom, because we've let go of the fear. There's always fear underlying attachment. So we've let go of whatever it was we were frightened of losing. And in the end, we're frightened of losing life itself. Well, life itself is the thing we cling to most, isn't it? So that's the greatest letting go, is our attachment to life. And, in the end you have no choice. You're going to have to let go of that, aren't you? Sooner or later, we don't know when, we're going to have to let go of life. But the opportunity to let go, in a sense of our attachment to life, is our opportunity to let go of this self-identity, attachment to self-identity. The attachment to life itself is this I am existence. I must be reborn, in a sense. The attachment to life itself. In the Buddhist teaching, if we don't let go of that, then we'll be reborn. But life is we can let go of our attachment to life itself, and that's something that, when we let go of the self, or our attachment to self, then it's a kind of dying, isn't it? So when we let go, we have to die. We die that little bit every time we let go of something. So if we let go of the fear of what that person's going to think of me if I do this, we let go of that fear, then we die to something inside us. That attachment that we have to wanting to be liked. We're letting go of that, so that we're dying to it. So every time we let go, we die a little bit. It's a practice that we can develop over time, to letting go a little, and then we can let go a lot. We see what we're clinging to fundamentally is life itself, and that we can, it's impossible to die to that, so that we're not even bothered or attached to living. And the interesting thing is, you don't lose anything all the way through. You never lost anything through letting go. That's the amazing thing. This is what gives you confidence. Through letting go a little, you gain confidence. You know it's possible. And you gain the benefits from it. You discover every time you let go, you don't lose anything. But you lay down a burden. And so that gives you the confidence more and more to let go of fear, however it represents itself. And of course in meditation it does all the time. Fear constantly appears in one form or another. And every time we have the opportunity to hold it and understand it and let it go. And so the attachment to life itself is simply the manifestation of perhaps our deepest fear. And so it's inevitable that whatever we're attached to will come up in meditation, and fear will always manifest. If you run away from it, it'll just keep running after you. So eventually you have to face it. It will always catch you. You'll never you have to turn and face it. And that's the only way to be free. Anyway, I've been talking quite long enough, so I do hope that you'll unmute yourselves if you have a question you would like to ask, or if you would like to put it into the chat box, then you can do that. And I hope somebody's got something they'd like to ask, otherwise I'll have to make up some questions for you and carry on talking. Somebody's asked a question, how do you deal with white lies? Well, it's a good question. The Buddha gave a talk about when was the right time to speak. There's a sutta about that. And there are something like 5 criteria for deciding when is the right time to speak. And white lies, well, I don't think he included any of the times to speak that white lies were included. So white lies are not right speech. But there are appropriate times. There are times when you don't need to speak. So it may be that the time when you feel like you need to tell a white lie is a time when if you can't find something honest to say, then maybe you can be silent. So it can be, let's say, I don't know what the white lie might be about, but let's say somebody sends you some poetry. Oh, wait a minute. Here we are. So let's go back to white lies. That let's say somebody sends you some poetry they've written, and you can't. It doesn't. You think that's. How am I going to respond to this? Because it doesn't resonate with you. You can't understand. It doesn't seem to you like poetry, but you feel like this person's you sent something. It's obviously important to them. So you feel that you need to respond in some way, in an honest way, but you don't need to say, honestly, I think this is rubbish. You don't do that, do you? You can say something that's honest, that is encouraging but not dishonest. But it's you don't have to pretend. You have to make up a lie. A bit like somebody who you would want to encourage them, but you don't have to. You can find ways to speak without being dishonest. Like when, if somebody says, there are times when you need to be honest, and it's okay to be honest. The Buddha was clear that there are times when we don't need to speak, but there are times when we should speak, and that it's time to be honest. Even though the person that we're speaking to isn't going to be delighted by what we have to say. So as I was saying, that sometimes we have to speak, have courage to say what is honest, even when it's not what somebody wants to hear. I've got a question. I found your example about honesty inspiring. I found it difficult to know how to respond when family members engage in negative conversations about someone who's not there. I feel a bit of anger, but I tell myself I should be compassionate. I do not know what to say. Could you help with some advice on how to manage those situations? It will happen again at Christmas, and I'd like to help them be kinder with their speech. Well, it's difficult, isn't it? We can set an example by not talking about other people behind their back. But it's being critical of other people who don't seem to be using right speech isn't necessarily going to get a good result. They probably use their not very good speech on you, and you'll get it back. So we can set an example and not engage, not we can explain why. We're not going to continue with this conversation. We can even, if we feel like it, say, put the other side. There's another side to the story. Explain that they're just painting a picture that is one seeing it from one angle. Even if they're not going to like what we say, because very often that kind of conversation, negative conversation about other people, is you're meant to join in with if you're going to be one of the crowd, and when you don't join in, then you're going to get rejected. And this means that it's quite a lonely path, isn't it? Because we have to face, or we have to, some of those situations where you need courage. So it's the courage not to be liked, that to not join in with gossip, for example, is the courage not to be liked. Because when they're likely to, quite possibly going to say something which, because they're not going to like you, because they want you to join in. So I think that having the courage to set your principles above that, because it's a wrong speech, isn't it? It's not. You won't feel good about it if you do join in. They might like you, but you won't feel good. You won't feel good about yourself. So they'll get used to you not joining in. You'll get used to you. If you change, people get used to it. And just, sometimes you might just have to go and do the washing up and leave them to it, perhaps. I can't give you... There is no real answer to these things, is there? It's an experimental path. You try something out. So you try different ways to avoid situations that are creating difficulty. But in the end, if you have to just say what you think, you have to say what you think. You just have to be honest. I think it comes from the heart. If it comes from a place of goodwill, then in the end, that will be, people respect that. You're not doing it to upset them. You just don't want to join in with and be critical about somebody, talk behind somebody's back. It's just, you just don't want to do that. Oh, that's a nice question. You mentioned that every time you let go, it's like dying a little. Could this feeling make us lose some zeal for living itself? Yeah, it does sound like that, doesn't it? Yeah, it's a good question. Well, you have to try it out. I don't find that in my experience. I find it enriching. It gives you greater zest for life. You can live, I think, life. It becomes more real because you're letting go of the unnecessary kind of obstructions to living life more fully. How do we develop courage to be honest, to let go of fear? Go on a retreat. That was my experience. So, as I say, I found this way of looking at it helpful. This way of what's the worst that can happen. When you that's not that's it just in my, what happens for me is that I can, when I look honestly, really look and investigate through meditation. So you bring this up in your meditation. This is when this manifests, because it will, because it's probably it's quite powerful and strong, so it's probably going to surface in the mind. So when it manifests, then you feel, oh no, that oh no feeling. And then you think, okay, so if I let go of this, what's the worst that can happen? It's never that bad. It's really, you can't imagine, when you really look at it, it's not that bad. And there's nothing to, it's not worth running away from. So, and of course the worst doesn't happen, at least in my experience. You can envisage the worst, but the worst is probably most unlikely to happen. So when we can face, but when with the fear is that, so facing that fear, facing the fear of the worst that could happen, then we're free. So then we've got, that's courage. We can just then go ahead. So, let's say the worst that can happen is that when I walk, that I'm going to perhaps I don't know what it is, and I don't know what the situation might be, but you can imagine the worst, but when the reality is it's most unlikely. So it's taking a chance. You walk off the edge. You have to be prepared to walk off the edge, and then this depends on confidence. So courage and confidence work together. You need to do this in small steps. So let's say you've got something bigger you've done, have the courage to face it. Well, try facing something small and see what happens. You gain confidence through small steps until you're ready to face the bigger fear that you're not ready to face yet. So you don't need to face the fear of death right now. You can just face the fear of not getting, of the person that you're going to speak to next not saying something you like. They might say something you don't like, and it's an amazing thing that you can think of somebody, and the thing that they're going to say that you don't like can come up straight away. So, when I see this person, they're going to say this, and that's and you can get a sinking feeling just bringing them to mind, and that sort of, they're going to say this, they're going to say it again. I know they're going to say it again, and we can just let go to that. We don't have to make it. You don't have to die to life itself. You can let go of that, just that much. So what's that about? That small thing that they're going to say, and it's going to create such a big sinking feeling inside. Where's that come from? And what is it that's so big and important about that small thing that they're going to say? Isn't that something I can let go to? Is that, you can investigate. What's that? Where's that coming from? And you can let go of it. It's really possible to let go of it. That means accepting it, isn't it? By letting it go. You're letting go of your resistance. I've mentioned before, I'll say it again, an example, my sister, when she used to say, God bless me, it used to really get to me. And I used to feel it as a sense, like a sinking feeling. She said, oh no, she said it again. And then when somebody said, I think it was at the Buddhist Society, they said, oh, well, it's a blessing, isn't it? I thought, yes, it is. When I turned it into a blessing, I let it go. And I blessed her back, but I didn't say it in words. But so now whenever she says, God bless you, I just feel that's a blessing. It's like a blessing. I just think that way. So I don't get that feeling anymore, that sinking feeling of, oh no, she said it again. It doesn't have a significance, it doesn't have a meaning. It's just at face value. Accept it as it's probably intended. The suffering I was creating was something I was creating. It wasn't something that was from the external object. It wasn't my sister, it was me that was creating the suffering. And you can let it go. And then that's what I mean. You can develop that courage in small steps, the willingness to let go. And that brings freedom. And then that's the basis of a complete change of relationship towards that person. And that's good, isn't it? You've died to that past relationship, and it's like a new, you know, a beginning, a new beginning. So I don't know if anybody knows what I mean by a sinking feeling that you can get when something, let's say the sinking feeling that, oh no, I've made a mistake. Oh no, I got it wrong. Oh no. And you can, what's that about? Where's that coming from? And you can let go of that, because that's coming from the fear of being criticised, isn't it? Somebody's going to fear of blame. You're not going to, you're going to be found out. You've made a mistake, and somebody's going to criticise you. And you can, when you let that go, that's freedom. You don't. That gives you the freedom to act without having to be constantly anxious that, yes, of course you'll make mistakes. I mean, if other people make mistakes, you don't blame them for it. You just forgive them straight away without a second thought. But when you make mistakes, oh no, that's unforgivable. And you get that sinking feeling. So you can let that go. You can investigate where that's coming from and let go of the fear of being criticised by other people. When do we let things, when do we let things go, and when do we hold on to things for a sufficient time to understand and know ourselves better? Yeah, well, that's important. We're not running away from things by letting them go. So we really, letting go is to hold up. So you allow things in. So how are you going to investigate where that fear of being criticised comes from if you don't hold up your resistance to it and take a look? So when you feel that, oh no, feeling comes up, then what happens, your habit, that you probably had the habit for all of your life to run away from that feeling, or that horrible feeling of, oh no, I can't bear it, I'm going to be criticised, I made a mistake. So we're so used to pushing that away, we don't really know what it is. All we get is the horrible feeling. We don't even really know where it's come from. We just get that horrible gnawing feeling somewhere in the guts, and we think, oh no. And that feels like something horrible. We don't even really know where it's come from. We can just notice even we get so used to the feeling, we don't even notice it. So we're so used to pushing it away and pretending everything's fine. So we have to move towards and gently turn towards and open up to that resistance. So first of all, we notice the feeling in the body. When we get, that's the first indicator that probably that there's that this is happening. So that oh no feeling, I think, that's the oh no feeling. When we investigate it, we start to recognise it. Oh, that's the oh no feeling. It feels like this. I know what that feeling is. So therefore, something's happened that's made me say oh no. So then we think, well, what is the thing? What is it that's caused that to arise? Well, that's the oh no feeling. That's because that happened when I suddenly remembered, realised I'd made a mistake. That's the oh no feeling. It came about then. So how did that arise? Because why would that oh no arise simply on account of making a mistake? What's the connection between the making of a mistake and a feeling of a oh no? And it's because I don't want to be criticised. Well, what's the worst that could happen if you let go of that? Well, nothing. No, it's not. There's nothing harmful that could come of letting go of that fear. It's not helping anybody. It's not. It doesn't. Hitting yourself over the head saying you've done something wrong doesn't help anybody. So we can let it go. Well, we have to let it in first, don't we? We let it in and investigate, understand. What's the worst that can happen? Nothing. We can let it go. And that's, we don't let go by getting rid of it. Trying to get rid of it is just the habit we've already got into, which is pushing it away and not investigating it. So we don't let go by resisting, but with the things that we don't like, we let go of by allowing them in. We let go of our resistance, and then we're free, because it doesn't matter what now it doesn't matter anymore. It's okay. So that's a sense of it's okay, and you think, wow, okay. That sounds, when we're suffering, we think the end of suffering will be something really big. But actually, it's just okay. It's just not suffering anymore. We're not creating suffering out of it anymore. So it's okay. It's nothing special, in a sense. But when you're suffering, it's horrible. But when you stop suffering, it's like, when you're sick, it's horrible. But when you're better, it's just okay. You're just okay. So there's nothing special, in a way. But it's very special, because there's just a sense of ease and freedom, and you're not creating suffering out of the things that you created suffering out of before. I think we've got to the time when I need to share the chanting book and do the closing homage, so if I can, I'll share my screen again, find the right page in the chanting book, and so let's do the closing homage. I think it'd be nice to do it in English and Pali. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava, the Lord, the perfectly enlightened and blessed one, Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi, I render homage to the Buddha, the Blessed One. Svakato Bhagavata Dhammo, the teaching so completely explained by him. Dhamman Namasami, I bow to the Dhamma. Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho, the Blessed One's disciples who have practiced well. Sangham Namami, I bow to the Sangha. Thank you everyone for joining this evening, and wish you well and look forward to seeing you on another occasion. So